It says we are live. I'll give people a couple minutes to show up, but we're live. So don't say anything stupid, guys.
And the YouTube page is all set up and good to go too.
Sweet. I got a Capri Sun for my drink today. I'm really excited.
I had to get a Red Bull today. I was needing the energy.
All right, it's been a minute. Y'all ready to start? All right. What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 6 of our youth engagement series. I am your host, Chris, back with my two co-hosts, Amada and Charlie. Amada, Charlie, how are you guys doing this fine, cloudy Tuesday in Humboldt County?
Doing good, Chris. Thanks for asking. Just rolling in right after lunch on a full belly, so feeling good. Cloudy, not really doing too much outside. I want to go out in my garden, but it's like pours every single time. So, but other than that, doing good. How are you doing, Charlie?
Doing all right. Just kind of doing my best to keep myself, in the right headspace in these weird times. I feel like as the weeks go on, I feel like I'm getting more and more antsy, but got outside this morning, get some fresh air, kind of get the blood circulating. So I think I'm doing all right. Appreciate you all asking.
What about you, Chris?
Oh man, I am so relieved. I finished my last final yesterday. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I am technically graduated. I have 3 days to celebrate before I start the master's program. So I am trying to make sure I get as much rest and much leisurely time as possible. So I'm happy to be done with school technically.
Nice. I am getting ready to go back into stats class, and it starts in June. So I'm like enjoying these last few weeks too before it's like in gear. I'm right there with you.
Oh yeah, it's a hassle. Charlie, how you doing with your first year of masters finished?
Yeah, it's been a bizarre one, that's for sure. I think that I'm feeling pretty good, just knowing that there's no virtual classrooms I got to be, but I still have some objectives to accomplish. It's been something that's been kind of weighing in on me, but I got to finish my IRB forms and advance to candidacy so I can conduct what they call good research. So something that's kind of one of those hoops and processes that I got to kind of go through to conduct research. But it's a good first year experience. Can't wait for the second year, get it done and over with halfway there. So I'm using that as motivation.
Nice. So that kind of brings me into our topic of the week, when our overall arching theme is self-care. And self-care, I'm going to ask you guys what it means, but I guess I can say what it is for me. Self-care is basically, especially in times like this, self-care is very important. Self-care is something that we need, and something that gives us a kind of way of not being overstressed, at least for me. So my question for you guys is, what is self-care to you guys? And what have you guys been doing for self-care for the people? And to tell the people who don't really know what self-care is, just how it is helpful.
It's a good question to start us off. For me, self-care is kind of when I take time for myself. It's not any kind of duties for school, work, stuff in that sense. Even when you go out and looking out for others and stuff, I even take a step back from that and just allow myself to unwind. And it's usually something that I do in my leisure time. That's kind of why I became a rec major too. Like I enjoy doing fun stuff, even for work. And so, but for me, self-care in the sense would be doing something that allows you to kind of give back to yourself and allow your mental health to come back. I like going out and doing activities, just even getting out and doing a run, something that just allows my mind to kind of, for me, running allows me to let my mind relax itself as well as think about things. And I'm getting a workout kind of in at the same time. But that's something I've been doing for self-care, or at least trying to do as much as I can lately. And for me, I think everybody's self-care could also be different, but for me, that's what it looks like. And some people have self-care for read. I know I read sometimes too, but it's just kind of a time where I can unwind, kind of give back to myself. I look at it in that way.
Yeah, I think that, you know, for like the definition, I think that self-care could mean a lot of different things depending on what kind of gets you to like kind of alleviate some of the stresses and pressures of like kind of everyday life. For me, I think and it's hard because a lot of times like I know what I need to do to like kind of recharge myself and like fill up my cup, and just sometimes there's things that just like kind of make that harder than it sounds like it could be. You know, like of course like I like going outside and getting fresh air and walking and getting the blood flowing, but I feel like there's other things that need to be done that may prevent me from that. And so self care is just like carving out that time for you to be able to do the things that make you feel good. I think that's one of like, you know, the harder things to kind of recognize is just like how mental health, especially, you know, shout out, it's mental health awareness month of May. So I think that's kind of goes hand in hand with what we're doing here on this web series. But yeah, just kind of how we know what we like to do. We know the hobbies that fill us up and really make us feel good. And sometimes, you know, mental health can kind of put you in a position where like, you know, that that's something you do, but you're not doing it because of a laundry list of reasons why. I think that's something that kind of prohibits people from doing like practicing self-care, but it's really important. You know, when I do it I feel a lot better. Like I feel like my body like even my body just like isn't stressed and clenched. Like, and you know, sometimes it is a chore, sometimes it is, you know, reading or getting an assignment done is self-care, because then at least I could make way with that and it's done and over with, you know, and that makes me feel good. But it is important to do something that is like a hobby, that is something that is nothing but fun and gets you away from your like kind of your unhealthy moods or tendencies. So I guess that's what self-care is for me. And like I said, walking around, just getting the blood flowing, you know, I like playing basketball, shooting around, but I think a lot of things get in the way of me actually doing that. Like, you know, just as far as the space, I don't have a basketball hoop outside, so it's kind of harder for me to do with time, convenience, and whatnot. But yeah, self care could look like anything for depending on who you are.
Yeah, self-care is it's very important. It's kind of your way of recharging, getting back to your kind of stability. And for me, at least, it's the way of not exactly stepping away from reality, but getting back to where you want to be and getting back on your right path. Um, for me, I love playing sports, love exercise, and I wish I'm in kind of Charlie, your space. I can't go play basketball, which is one of my ways of self-caring. But I'm trying to do any kind of way, anything I can to do self-care, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's like safely going in on a drive, or it's safely being at the beach. You just anything you can to make it so you are not as stressed, you are not hurting yourself in a mental aspect. So self-care is very, very important, which brings us to our challenge of the week. I know we didn't forget about that, don't worry. Our challenge of the week is we want to see how you guys self-care, what you guys are doing for to relax, what you guys are doing to better promote your mental health and better protect you guys from the stresses of life. So Amada, Charlie, do you think you guys are down for this challenge, and do you think you guys are willing to show people?
Yeah, that sounds fine with me. I've been trying to establish kind of a little tip too that's helped me with kind of self-care is establishing some form of routine. And especially right now with the whole COVID situation, shelter in place, it's kind of allows us to have whatever routine we kind of want to format. And so it's allowed me to be more lazier at some points and stuff like that. But being able to kind of get up, get in the morning, this is what I'm going to do. And then I could do this after I get that done. But that looks good to me. I think I could share some of the stuff I've been trying to do every day that alleviates some stress.
How about you, Charlie?
I think it's going to be something that will take a lot of more intention and intention to make sure that I do what I know is good for me and my mental health and taking care of myself. I think a lot of times that might look like something like taking a nap or like not pressuring myself to wake up and do something, being productive, because a lot of times I feel like that's something I have to do is just like, well, I got to get something done. So I'm like, so I earn that nap or so I earn that, night of rest, and so it kind of gets to me, in these weird times, like, man, like, it's the same routine. It's like the same old. Like, how do I like get out of that routine and do something that's like good for me? And that looks like a lot of different things, like starting a good TV series, that's definitely a way of like self-care and kind of getting out of reality. Like reality right now isn't very great. And so just like giving my time and space and empathy to be who I want to be in different times and places. And so, I think my versions of self care is going to look different for this challenge. It could just be simply getting some homework done. Like it sounds weird, like, but I feel like if I don't, it's just going to make me feel like overwhelmed more throughout the week. So I think that's one way to kind of distort what the traditional definition of self-care might be is just getting something done so then you could like make way with it and alleviate that stress and tension. And then just getting outside, we went on a walk this morning on Hammond Trail and it's pretty cool. Fresh air is always like good for the mental state. And then just seeing little chipmunks, cute little things are just like, okay, I think I'll be all right today. So just those little things really make a difference.
Yeah, this that kind of brings me to one of my points that this challenge isn't really to be like, oh, I'm doing better than you, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. This challenge is to promote your wellness, promote your health, promote what you guys are doing, and maybe help some other people along the way with their if they're trying to think of something to self care, trying to think of a way for them to de stress, a way for them to kind of get away from things safely. The challenge, we invite you to send us as many stuff as you want. I know that I'm going to send at least a couple things a day. I don't know if Charlie and Amada can, but I know that some of our Two Feathers coworkers are going to be sending us stuff, whether they want to or not, because I'm going to be bugging them until they do. I know that this is supposed to be fun, and this challenge is going to be something that we love to see, and I think you guys would like to see it too. And who knows? There might be a prize for one of our people who do a challenge. So be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for our different. Be on the lookout for what we're doing, and hopefully you can put some on there too.
And the poll questions. We're going to be trying to shoot those out there too.
That brings me to my next thing, order of business. We are gonna have so every question that I ask Charlie and Amada, I have a chance to ask you guys at home. You guys will have a poll question on our story every single day, at least one. So you guys have time to, if you guys don't want to post something on our story, we can answer the poll question for us. We'd love to hear from you guys, and we love to see what you guys are doing for self care. Yeah, Amada, Charlie, anything you guys want to say about the poll and our self care questions before we get started?
Yeah,
I think it all. Oh, go ahead, Charlie.
I think that is a cool way to kind of actually be engaging. I think a lot of times the speaker series could be like, dang, I forgot about it, or dang, I thought it was on Facebook, or just all the different barriers that could like prevent someone from being here. And this is our way of being like even more accessible through social media. And I understand that a lot of kids are more active on Instagram than YouTube. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know. But I think this is just one of our ways of trying to be creative on ways to kind of reach the audience that we're really trying to focus on. And I'm also interested to see other ways that I could, pick up on self-care activities and ways of like kind of taking care of myself. And so I think we're really looking forward to that engagement, and hopefully you all are engaged.
I piggyback that idea too. I think it's good to kind of get you guys involved with what's going on. And I see a lot of you guys do, and Charlie kind of hinted on that to us the other day, but there's a lot of people doing that push-up challenge and the mental health awareness there and stuff. So I think there's room for all the challenges to be done, I think. And it'd be cool to, hopefully we're going to get some more of our like Two Feather staff in on this stuff, and you'll start seeing some more familiar faces too. So it gets a little bit more of a comfort feeling, but again, just let us know too what you want to see, because we want to get some ideas out there to get you guys involved too. But hopefully we've been seeing some responses from the poll question that we put up so far. So thank you too.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that me, Charlie, and Amada know almost nothing about social media. So we want to try to reach you guys in as many ways as possible, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, any type of other thing. Please let us know, because I feel like a 60-year-old man when it comes to technology, and I would much rather see you guys in person. So either way I can see you guys can contact us or answer a poll question is more than helpful. So that kind of leads us onto our topic of self-care. You guys kind of already answered what self-care is, but I kind of want to know what, and you guys said what you like to do, but for the people who don't really know what self-care is or how to even like start, bless you, Charlie, how to start like showing that self-care, what can you guys say to them, and how can you guys get someone started on having their own self-care, or having or knowing what self-care is?
For some advice I would maybe give is just, what do you like to do that brings you joy? Like what lets you kind of relax and have fun in the sense. And it doesn't mean like try to find something and figure that out. Just kind of what do you already do? Because I had to kind of take a step back and really think about that when I got asked, like, what is leisure? What do you do in your free time? Like, even if you don't know what leisure is, like leisure is kind of what you go out and do in your time that isn't work, isn't school, like when there's obligations. And so I would just take a step back and look at that, as well as like hobbies. Charlie kind of touched on that too, but just kind of stuff that allows you to unwind. It can even be something you do with family members too, going on a walk all together, sometimes what I do is taking my dog out with me for a walk and just getting that stress, being with my dog, and that happiness and alleviation of like stress and anxiety. But just stuff where you kind of notice your mood changes, and you notice that you're kind of getting that physical, emotional, mental kind of stigmatization like down, and you're able to like relax yourself. But that would be my advice, just kind of noticing where you kind of have that draw to.
Yeah, some good advice. What I would suggest too is that like try not to make it like a start and end. Like even if it's like a couple minutes a day, I think that's important. Like even if it's like, well, that would usually like for me to really enjoy that, I'd want to do that for an hour. But since I only have like 20 minutes, I'm not going to do it. I think it's important to like kind of unlearn the concept of time and self-care practices. A lot of times, for example, like if you want to do a face mask, like, oh well, it calls for 15 minutes and I don't have 15 minutes right now. Maybe it's all right to just like do it for 5 minutes. Like I think it's just really important to make sure that you're doing what makes you feel good and not like stressing and worrying about time or the concept, different things that contribute to what we think is caring for ourselves. And I think a lot of times we like to think, well, I mean, for me, I feel like I like to put other people's before me. Like, well, I just want to make sure that they're taken care of. And that's important. It's important to have that kind of characteristic, but it's also important to like take a look and be like, man, I'd really like it if I were, just taking a bath right now. And I honestly feel like I steer away from baths as much as I do love them. It's just like, I feel like I'm a little bit too big, like lengthwise, to where like it's just not comfortable. It's counterintuitive at that point. But just advice is just like, just go for it. I don't know how else to say it. Just go for it. Just do it.
I agree with that too. I think I have one too, just hate baths. I think they're gross. It's like people sitting, I don't know, I think it's like a silly concept of sitting in your own bathwater. And bleh. But I can agree with that 110%. But yeah, I agree with that too. Just doing something that maybe it's something out of the ordinary that you don't want to put to your timeline or something, just trying out. But I think we're having some that's a good pose to get frozen into. I think we're having some technical difficulties with our host today and the Wi-Fi signal, but I still have the questions pulled up and some of the stuff that we were going to go do, so we can keep rolling with it and let Chris hop on when he gets a chance.
Something that Chris was just telling us is that he's been living off of his hotspot for 4 years. Like I can't get over it. And ever since he said that, I think it kind of come back to haunt him today. So you're looking good, Chris, and that statue you have there.
I agree. He hasn't had problems at all until he said that one statement, and then it was like he got kicked off straight, like taking shots. But I think we could start talking about maybe is the what kind of stigmas that come around with self-care, because I know we want to try to keep it positive and like the good stuff that goes on, but sometimes people could be like, oh, you don't need to do that, or you can put that off for later, come out and do this or do that, because it's looked at as fun too. But there's been times where I've had to maybe back out of something and be like, oh no, I have this obligation to do, I have homework. I think one big one for me when I was in high school was practice. I remember I was always saying that to my friends, like, I have practice, I have practice. And some of my friends who didn't play sports were kind of like, can't you just ditch? Can't you just do that? And I remember that was something where I would have to put those obligations, but that was my self-care. So sports was something that I went to, and I let all my releases out in sports. And so it was different viewpoints from other kids that were playing sports, because some of them have been in camps from the time they were youth, and their parents have just been doing that for them. For me, I used it as an outlet, kind of what was going on in home life and stuff like that. But I think the stigmas kind of come around it negative, and sometimes you just have to take a minute for yourself, and it doesn't even have to be bad. You can just be like, oh no, I think I just need to take some time for myself, do this or do that. But what do you think about, Charlie, with stigmas and self-care?
I think it's, I think a lot of the times people kind of pose their own like ideas and notions of what self-care is on others, like I could imagine as kids, and I'm kind of guilty of this too, where, like somebody's like, what do you like to do in your free time? Fortnite. I'm like, oh man, like I wish you would do this. And it's just like, well, who am I to say what makes them feel good? So I think that's kind of a negative stigma around self-care. It's like people want to impose their own ideas of self-care. It's like, well, why don't you go for a walk? Because that makes me feel good. It's like, well, maybe a walk was something that they did with a family member that is no longer around. Like you just don't know what that correlation might be to an activity that seems like it's a good idea. And so I think it's really important to be understanding and like thoughtful of what an activity may be for someone. I mean, of course, just like anything, it's important to have a balance and routine and just mixing it up. Because what if the power went out? Then it's like, what do I do without internet, or what do I do without online gaming? It's important to like switch it up, just like anything. Having diversity is important for sustainability. And I think that once you lose internet, or you lose your console goes down, it's like important to have oh well, that's okay, I'm just gonna go outside and carve on some sticks, or I'm gonna work on jumping center, or just the different things that could be more sustainable. You can do it a lot more often, and just really nurturing that relationship to self-care, because I don't want to be the person who's like stigmatizing someone. It's like, oh, you're always on that game. And it's just like, well, they're already going to be rude to me about it, so I might as well still do it, because they're not going to just stop like kind of ridiculing me. So I think it's just really important to be compassionate and empathetic to people on how they kind of navigate self-care, because it's something that's been kind of taken from us and isn't really valued in this society. And so it's just really important to nurture that relationship. Welcome back, Chris.
Oh man, I had to use some self-care to get myself calmed down after the technical difficulties. How are you? What I missed? What are you guys talking about?
We both just kind of touched base on what stigma is kind of around self-care and how we feel about it. We both kind of just answered, so maybe you can touch base on how you feel about stigma around self-care in that sense.
Yeah, there's some negative stigmas, like if you like to sleep or you like to play video games, there's like people are like, oh, you're always on that video game. My dad always like, you're always on that darn phone, you better get off of it. Like those are kind of stigmas that you can get caught up in thinking that self-care is bad. So you have to kind of put yourself in a situation where like, this is something that helped me, and if it's helpful to you, then it is self-care. And while you can't get indulged with it, it is a way of helping you out and helping you get to your goals and kind of relax and be back to your center. So getting rid of those negative stigmas about self-care while also being careful not to overindulge is it's a balance. But it's good to make sure that you are still doing what you love to do and doing what makes you happy and doing what kind of helps your center Yeah, so that's kind of my my little spiel on the stigmas. But you guys are doing good. You guys don't need me anymore, so you guys can go be host now. I'm gonna walk away and go with self care now.
This isn't self-care to you, Chris. How dare you?
This is my self care. I miss your guys' faces. I miss talking to people, either you guys or online or on our YouTube channel. So you guys are my self care. You're right, Charlie. I had to go drink another one of my Capri Suns too to when I wasn't on. So now that I got back on, I don't have to worry about my Capri Suns. So that kind of you guys have got this all planned out. You guys lead me to my next question perfectly. If I can get it up. What so you guys talk about the stigmas and the negative stereotypes. What have you guys been doing to kind of combat those negative stereotypes? And what have you guys been doing to like to enjoy yourself and to not really think about those negative stigmas?
For me, it's kind of like what you said, just not try to think about them in a sense and try to do what makes me happy. And that's what I, again, get from self-care is happiness, what brings me joy. Just because sometimes for my life, I'm in work, school. This last year, honestly, was kind of a self-care year for me. I decided to take like a gap year in between master's program and kind of just start working and do that. And some people are like, oh, a gap year is bad. Like you don't go back to school after that. And there are that stigmas around it. But again, it's what you bring to the table and how you go about it. So it's kind of almost just bashing those stigmas and making a new stigma for it too. You can start well, there are other people that have took a gap year and then they go and do yada, yada, yada. So that's an example, at least for me recently, that I kind of broke down that stigma because a lot of my family even was kind of like, oh, I don't know, but I know my motivation and my self-care, and I think it actually helped me to get more done personally. What about you, Charlie?
How do I combat those stigmas? I feel like I just try to first. I think there's like stages for me. Like at first, I'm like, yeah, heck yeah, that's right. I like to sleep to have a good to ground myself or re-energize myself. And then there's a moment like, well, I'm not going to deny the fact that I like to sleep, and it could be a little bit too much. I'm not going to sit here and argue about, my how my tendencies can sure, there's always room for improvement, kind of way of thinking. I always like to be like, yeah, that's I have a valid reason on why I'm tired, and then also being like, well, but it is good to think there's room for improvement. And then that also then it really grounds me to all right, then if I do this, then now I'll do some homework to where if anyone wants to call me out on sleeping, I'll be like, yeah, but I finished my assignments for the day. So it's it has that balance of productivity and relaxation. And I think in a lot of the times that comes from kind of I don't know, I like to be super mindful and just think in a way where I'm not just from my perspective, but kind of subjectively in a way. Okay, what would their interpretations be like? And I'm just kind of thinking of recently, just that push-up challenge, it's just hey, this is promoting mental health awareness. And, there's kind of a stigma attached to that where it's you got to record yourself doing 25 push-ups for that to be promoted, but also still kind of pushing people's buttons here and there of you're not doing it, you need to step your game up. And it's kind of this toxic way of kind of incentivizing people, which competition is a really good way to kind of get yourself going and motivated, but there is a balance. Just like anything, there's a balance in that. Are you checking in on me before you're hey, you need to get into shape? No. Are you telling me how you doing? How's school? How's the wife and kids? No. So it's counterintuitive. And so it's really, for me, how I navigate that is yeah, that's right. I like to hang out and not do my push-ups. I got challenged to do, and that's okay. I have a laundry list of reasons why. And then, just but I could use the, motivation, but I don't have to broadcast it on Facebook, And so yesterday I did some stretches and some push-ups and sit-ups while we're watching our speaker series, I'm so just because I didn't post it on Facebook, that doesn't mean that I'm not being mentally aware of myself and others, you know, like checking in with my family, like in an intentional way, not just like, what's up, man? It's like, so how you doing? Like, how are you doing in these times? Like, this stuff's crazy. And so it's just like really kind of being better about what, you know, those kind of efforts are. It's like, I'm gonna challenge you to check in with someone rather than challenge them for a push-up, you know? And so I think that's one way I just creatively, and then it's almost like a little bit more effort and time and energy, but I think it's ultimately more effective than the push-up challenge.
Yeah, the way I look at it, it's in the name. Self care is literally you helping yourself, you taking care of yourself. Uh, and yeah, there may be certain ways that people can view as negative, but if it's something that is useful for you, like I have a Mario Kart on my phone that I always like playing. I'm really, really into it. Um, and that's something that my friends will see, like, you're always on that game. You're not paying attention. Like, no, like I'm able to have that self-care and relax because I'm playing Mario Kart. I'm not all stressed and like, and I have it to the point where like when I was doing all my finals and like trying to get all this stuff done and stressing out about it, I would take a couple minutes and go play a Mario Kart and it would be helpful for me. So like it, there is certain things that people can view, but it's honestly up to what you think and what is best for you. If you think that playing Fortnite or playing Mario Kart, or by the way, you know, you guys could beat me in Mario Kart, just thought I'd point that out there. But if you at home, you think you can like, play video games or sleep, like Charlie said, or do any other stuff that people may think of as negative, if it helps you, it is a self-care. It is self-care, and it is something that you are using to help better yourself. So that's kind of the way I look at it. If it's a way to help better yourself, then it's self care. Uh, so that kind of brings me on to my next question for you guys: is what is something that you guys wish you can do right now for self care that you haven't been able to do? Like, for example, me, I'm really into sports. I'm really into playing basketball. I like going out to the gym. And I can't do that right now because the gyms are closed and I don't want to, I want to be safe. So that's something that I think is really like, I really want to do that I can't do. So, Amada, Charlie, you guys have anything you guys wish you could be doing right now?
For me, it's kind of, I don't get to go very often snowboarding and stuff. And so I had some stuff planned, saving money, and I was going to do some trips on my free weekends and stuff like that. And so that's kind of been a bummer. And also, just kind of going out to the parks and being able to just walk around. Like I live by Sequoia Park. I can still go walk around, but everything's like taped off, like the whole park itself where the kids can't play. So it's just like an eerie feeling almost. And I had to drive even to Brookings last week, I believe it was the week before, for car work at it's only the closest like Mazda dealership, but all the way up until you hit Oregon, all of the national parks and the parks and anything were just blocked off. And it was a weird feeling because it's like that's where I go to kind of relax and just de-stress. I enjoy hiking and backpacking, so it was just interesting feeling that feeling almost. And I didn't visually get to see it though until I was driving. But I think that's the biggest thing is just like having to kind of stay put because I like to go out and see what's going on. But that's been the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, for me, I feel like the hardest thing is not being able to kick it with my friends, you know, like as much as we do keep in contact via all the social medias, there's just something different from when you're in there in the same environment, going out and going hiking, you know, going to bowl, you know, just the different activities that kind of makes hanging out with a group of people, even family, you know, like, and it's crazy because I'm thinking of all these luxurious like activities, but really, dude, like a hug, you know, like it really comes down to like, it's been months since I've given my parents a hug. It's been months since I've given my siblings, my friends hugs, you know, and like, I don't know about y'all, but I love hugs. Like hugs make me feel so good. And it's just like, and I'm grateful to have a partner to give a hug, you know, and, you know, air hugs will do it, but it's just not the same, you know, like I really like being able to express myself physically and like with a hug or high five, handshake, like those little things, the little nuances that are now like forever going to be different for me. And maybe it'll make that hug feel that much better when the time is right. But right now, it's pretty tough to think about.
That's such a good sentiment. Like it's my self care this past couple of weeks has been. I called my grandma and I told her about just how I've been doing it. Every time I call her, she is the happiest person in the world. Just, oh my God, Chris, I haven't seen you in so long. Like I can't wait till you come up to Washington and see me, blah, blah, blah. And like we're making plans and like that is more self care than any therapist or any like professional person could ever give me. Just having a call with my grandma. So that is like that's how important self care is and how big of an impact it can have on you guys. And how something simple it could be. Self care is something that can be really really simple and not something that you have to go and pay thousands of dollars for, or even $100 for some shoes or something. Um, so I guess the last question, kind of to wrap it up, is what can you guys explain to someone who maybe doesn't know what self care is or is trying to learn what self care is and what or doesn't know where to start? Like what who can they ask? Who can they turn to for guidance on self care? Who can they talk to be like, this is helpful for me if they don't know what's helpful for them?
I would suggest somebody they look to as a mentor, like such as us, or maybe family members, parents, guardians, in that sense, just somebody that they feel has an established kind of maybe leadership role that they see in their life, or they have strong leadership skills. Because I feel like people who have good leadership skills in the sense have established a good routine. They know their self care, they know how to level out and give enough energy to different things. But that would be my recommendation, even like a teacher, a coach. A lot of my coaches I've looked for self-care in the sense of just having somebody to talk to too. But I think that's pretty much for me how I would say.
Yeah, I think, as much like my immediate response is just like yourself, like your imagination. And and also kind of like trusted adults, like Mata had said, like, mentor, whether that's us here at Two Feathers or even just like a friend. It doesn't even have to be an adult, I was thinking a trusted adult, but it could also be a friend that you really admire. And it's like, man, you're always having fun. You're always laughing. You're always smiling. Like, how do I do that? And it kind of could be like, I feel weird for asking this, but chances are like that one point or another, the person you're probably asking is like, I never was really modeled that for myself, like that's something that I just kind of learned from this person. And it really just gets you to see somebody differently. It's like, oh, whoa, like you're so funny that I just never thought that you even had a moment where you were shy, like, or you didn't know how to express yourself. Like, it seems like you had it under control from day one. And it's just like, but you didn't. And so like, it's just like that better, like the way of kind of, you really don't know anyone until you like just get to know them yourselves. And I think that's something that's really hard in these times is like, well, I only get to talk to so many people at a time. And like I said, that we all have the answers to this, like as much as the other things might tell us that we don't know what to do for ourselves, like somewhere in our mind, somewhere in our body, somewhere in our, spirit or soul, we know what makes us feel good. And it's just kind of unlearning the things that kind of blur that knowing, and so it sounds really philosophical, but it's really as simple as like, man, instead of waking up when the alarm goes off, I want to sleep in for another 20 minutes. That's what I want to do for self-care. Like, and it might be hard because parents definitely want to make sure you're getting up doing your homework, but just make sure you're doing your homework, like time constructs really don't mean anything in these times. It's all about productivity and that balance of like chilling and getting yourself done.
Yeah, those are great comments, great advice. The best thing I can say honestly is no one's gonna know what is best for self-care better than you. You're gonna know what's the best self-care for yourself. And you ask me, ask Charlie, Amada, anybody, we all had to start somewhere with self-care and finding out what works for us. So the best advice I can give you guys, best assistance, not advice, best assistance I can give for you guys is just taking that first step and finding what works for you, finding how you can de-stress, finding out how you can not be so uptight and such like worried about things. And if you try something and maybe it makes you more stressed out, then try something else. You keep doing what helps you. Uh, there are so many different possibilities for each different person. They just gotta do what self-care works for them. So that's kind of the best assistance or best advice I could give you guys. That being said, that brings us to about the end of our talk on self-care. Before we go, Amada, Charlie, anything you want to talk about on that topic, or anything other comments you want to say?
No, I think that's pretty much, you hit pretty much the golden points. I think just kind of maybe brainstorm ways that you can give back to yourself in self care, even if you're not. It might sound silly, or you might be thinking, oh, I don't need that. I do this and that and this. But sometimes you can't even just think back, like, what did I do for self care today? And if you can't really answer that question, I feel like you might not have maybe given yourself enough time or something in that sense. But I try to do that at least throughout the middle of the day, like kind of stop and been like, what have I done to let myself, even if it's just my lunch break and I'm taking that to relax. Sometimes I'll even forget, like, oh, it's 2 and I haven't even ate yet, or something in that sense too. So, but yeah, just taking that time.
Just take care of yourselves. So if you could take care of yourself, and you can take care of others, and if you can take care of others, we're going to take care of our communities, and that's what it's really all about. But it starts with yourself. So take care of yourself for once.
That's perfect. I don't need to say anything else after that. So before we go, I do want to let you guys know that we have some good stuff coming up for you guys in the future. We are doing this thing every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, rain or shine, because we're indoors. We also have another episode with Chef Bubba coming soon, so make sure you guys watch out for that. And then we're eventually going to get our interview with Virgil. I don't know when he's going to do it. I don't know when we're going to get the stuff to him, but we're going to have an interview with Virgil of very soon, I promise you. And last thing before I go to Jordan, since he just texted me, you cannot beat me in Mario Kart. You will never beat me in Mario Kart. See me. All right, on that note, later, guys. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your week. Make sure you guys hit us up on Instagram and answer our polls. And we hope to see you again next week.